Hey folks, and welcome to the Deconstructor of Fun podcast. I'm your host, Michail Katkoff, and in this episode, my guests are Manish Gajria from Meta and Ryan Davies from Kwalee. Together, we're going to discuss the current trends in the mobile gaming market, focusing on value optimization, hybrid casual games, and the impact of AI on user acquisition strategies. We're going to explore the challenges of measurement and attribution in a changing landscape and really the importance of creative strategies. With these two guests, we're going to share success stories from the industry. And overall, the conversation will highlight the evolving nature of gaming marketing and the tools that Meta is developing to support advertisers in achieving better outcomes. These two are fantastic guests. I hope the conversation is not too high level. I'm a dummy. I don't know that much about marketing. But yeah, fascinating conversations, fascinating understanding of how the market is evolving and that it's perhaps not as difficult as we may sometimes think. So without further ado, if you enjoy this episode, give it a thumbs up, a like, 5-star, whatever platform you're using. And if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, where you can see actually some of the slides that we're showing, then would much appreciate if you join as a subscriber to our YouTube channel, because we have some really cool, custom, interesting, high production value content coming your way. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Manish Gajria and Ryan Davies. Manish Gajria, Director of Product Management at Meta. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Mishka. Thanks for having me. Really looking forward to this conversation.
Likewise. And Ryan Davies, Head of Performance Marketing, not just marketing, performance marketing at Kwalee, a hyper-casual publisher turned into a real-life game publisher. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really good to be here again. I think 5 or 6 years later or something. So
yes.
Good turnaround. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We had to keep you on the leash, so come on, push it back always. But anyways,
yeah.
So we're not we're not talking about the past episode we did with Ryan in 2019. We're here to talk about overall what's going on with the market, and who's better to talk about it than Meta, that has all the data in privacy, in well stored manner. But Manish, so kind of look, you're seeing everything that is happening in the market, and we're seeing only what happens and what we can see through third-party data platforms. And some of it is positive, some of it is a little bit negative. What are you seeing in the gaming market, especially in the mobile gaming market at the moment?
Great. There's a few things, right? And yes, on the one hand, Meta does have a view of the entire market, including non-gaming. So we obviously look at apps as a whole. We look at the various segment of apps, and gaming obviously being one quite important one, but there's e-commerce apps, there's tech apps, there's utility apps. There's a whole bunch of them out in the market that are competing to find the best users, to find the highest value they can with the budgets they've got. I've learned a few very interesting things, and I'm assuming most of the listeners are aware of this already, but folks aren't necessarily budget constrained when it comes to UA. They're performance constrained. And in a way, because I look at the app world and I look at the gaming world, I get to see almost the sharpest extreme end of that. The advertisers are super sophisticated. They are well versed with data and they use BI very effectively. I find them to be some of the most sophisticated, frankly, when it comes to business intelligence and analytics. The one thing that is very obvious in all of the things we're seeing is the very rapid and very deliberate shift towards purchase and value. So while apps and different stages of their life cycles would have been super happy to spend money on acquisition and volume, that focus has shifted quite dramatically to value. And so I think the role of this sophisticated analytics, the role of having good visibility into measurement and attribution, and the desire to sort of manage every dollar of their budget towards that performance is just now visible in every aspect of what we see. So what I love about it is it's obviously pushing the industry in the direction of let's get things right end to end, from the time the UA budgets are planned, the channels are planned, the measurement, the actual day-to-day management of these campaigns, and the long-term thinking as well, right? Not just D7, but D30, D60, D180, payback periods. The whole ecosystem and the whole life cycle, I think, has become much more fascinating as a result. And we're paying a lot of attention to that right now. We're trying to make sure that we can build the tools and the products that allow us to walk in complete lockstep with this. That's kind of my first major observation that I'd like to sort of discuss with you folks. And I'd love to get, Ryan's perspective on it as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that totally. I mean, you can look at gaming, and I look at what I've seen over the last 5-6 years, and that is an increased sophistication in what we are capable as within Kwalee for sure. But like when I look at the industry more generally, and I think that pushing for value, as you described it, I think that's a good way to put it. And I know that definitely fits in well with how things are named and structured and things on Meta and Facebook. But I think that just does come with also the way the industry has become a little, for a marketer, and speaking as a performance marketer, definitely, as we all know, measurement has become more difficult. Yes. Okay. Same story that we all heard a million times, but that has forced this natural push towards value optimization, and also just being, I would say that what comes with that is being willing to push things towards the networks more willingly, whether it's Meta or any other ad network, like being willing to give data, to pass data in order to inform how we make decisions and how our campaigns optimize and move. So, it goes lock in step really from both the sophistication and needs of a publisher, and then what the ad networks are responding with and what our platform holders are responding with. So agreed. Makes sense.
I've had this. So this was an interesting point made by Nebo, who's working in user acquisition in Zynga. I'm forgetting what his role is, but he made an interesting point saying that we're living through a renaissance of value optimization, and as in any value optimization, if the pie is growing rapidly, then everybody is getting, more wealthier because they're optimizing against value. But if the pie is not growing as fast as it used to, like in, for example, mobile gaming, where we used to, compound annual growth rate of 20%, and now it's pretty much at around 2 to 4%. If everybody is going towards value optimization, then it's a little bit of a dog-eat-dog world where the big ones are taking the most of it. And that's what we're seeing in the market, with definitely huge games launched, record revenues, but also a lot of companies that are struggling, which didn't happen quite so intensely before. Is this sort of a notion that makes sense? Manish, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I would agree. Sort of notionally, as you say, it is definitely the situation right now. The way I was going to express it is the dog-eat-dog world is really that it's getting expensive, right? If you want to capture that value and you want to go after those users that will generate that value, that pie of users is probably still relatively... There's a lot of users. There's a lot of users you can go after. But this age-old method of going after the whales and counting on them to just give you all of the value, all of the revenue that you expect to get, that's become trickier, and that's become more expensive, without a shadow of doubt. So I think as some of the largest advertisers continue to spend record sums of money on acquisition, it has got harder for the medium and small advertisers to compete, because at the end of the day, these are all series of auctions that are happening, and everyone's competing to get their impression in front of the best users possible. So my sense is the direct outcome of that is it's becoming expensive to grow your business, to grow your user base. And because of some of the other challenges we talked about, like measurement, etc., there is a higher risk to it. Whereas previously it would have been somewhat definitive. Now there is an element of risk of, am I still going to see the same ROAS growth over the longer periods of time or not, right? How do I make sure that I am getting the users that will also give you that linear or exponential growth over long periods of time. That expense is real, no doubt about that.
This podcast is brought to you by AppsFlyer. In today's digital world, understanding your app's journey from discovery to download is more than just insightful, it's essential. Enter AppsFlyer, the leader in mobile attribution and marketing analytics that allows you to measure the full potential of your marketing efforts, making every ad dollar work smarter. With AppsFlyer, that's your new reality. Dive deep into data-driven insights that reveal exactly where your users come from and how they interact with your app. AppsFlyer, where your app's potential meets performance. Ryan, can you give a sort of an explanation to a dummy like myself what value optimization really means in practice?
Yeah, so I guess for me, I think within mobile especially, ROAS optimization is also at the core of that, which is basically fundamentally about actually tying in the very direct, whether it be monetary return, sending that straight back to the provider, to the ad platform, whatever it might be, and having that much more one-to-one realistic version of, I want my ROAS to be at this certain point, and the ad network to basically funnel that information back to you. And I think that's, in a way, it simplifies in a sense. But I would agree though, like Mishka, with what you said about how that impacts the wider market and the ability for new things to kick off is quite interesting, and definitely not as simple and easy as it may seem at first. That, what I described makes it sound much more simple, but in a way, understanding exactly what, say, ROAS you're really aiming for and wanting to hit and going for is not actually a straightforward thing that every publisher can just instantly understand. And I think, you only have to look at, I think everyone has seen those charts, right? Where it's here's the spread of installs based on how old the games are currently in the market, right? And lately, of course, it's, games that are beyond, 3-4 years ago, the ones that are taking up, 70-80% of the either install or revenue. And I think that does indicate how, okay, we've all talked about how it's harder to launch new games. And I do think that it's a slight downside of value optimization, and that it's easier for bigger players, including myself in this, really, to be able to actually run and optimize and measure that properly, and getting new products out under that methodology is a bit tougher. And it's one thing I think actually Meta is, I will happily say is very strong on, is actually making it much easier to invest a small amount in order to understand, using these kind of optimization methods in order to understand where you stand as a product, and be able to grow that naturally, rather than having to just jump into the deep end, invest all your money. I think Meta is in a good position, always has been, when it comes to making more gradual, smaller investments that you can build up over time and evolve your campaign strategy over time. Whereas there's definitely some channels that are kind of all or nothing. You throw in, you run your ROAS campaigns and you hope for the best. So I think, yeah, I know you didn't ask, Manish, but I would give the thumbs up on Meta for that part.
Thank you. Well, that's appreciated. I think you said something that's quite important as well, and there's a subtlety in it which is worth dwelling over for a second. When it came to upper funnel campaigns, where I want an install, you could almost argue that it's sort of a commodity. An install is an install, and yes, some apps and some games that are established, etc., more recognized, they will get the volumes. But even the smaller, unrecognized ones can get the volumes. When it comes to value, going back to your question on what is value optimization, the definition of what is value is quite important. And I think that's what Ryan was referring to there, right? It is different for different apps. What do you specifically value? Is it 7-day ROAS? Is it 28-day ROAS? Is it a specific event, which is a proxy for ROAS, which is ultimately captured, value that's captured significantly further out in the timeline? And no, okay, there will be groups of advertisers that are similar, but no two games will behave exactly the same way. And so I think this subtlety is important to capture. And this is where I think an organization with, the capabilities that we have, Meta basically is spending quite a bit of its kind of research efforts right now on making sure that we can capture those subtleties well, and we can actually eke out that additional bit of performance that's unique to you and your game, or unique to you and your app. And I find that area quite fascinating, frankly.
Yeah.
Kind of addressing just with so for those on YouTube or Spotify, like whenever you mention something, I realize that we have a chart for that. So we if you're not using either of those platforms, so when Ryan was talking about the concentration of the market, you can quite clearly see it. So even looking at games from 2018, the market, and 2023, so despite the pretty significant growth of the market, what you can see is that the games that are 5 years or older are taking extensively larger percentage of the market. Then in 2018, that was about 30% of the market, and currently it's eking towards 65% of the market. That sounds a lot, but on console PC, it's 75%. So it's not even as concentrated as it is with those, but it is larger. And then I always have to be now more positive about things. If you can look at one thing in these charts, it shows that on the current year, the games that were launched that are less than a year old are taking over twice larger percentage of the market than in the years before. So this is kind of showing that there are new games that are taking significant portion of the overall market, all while older games are controlling larger portions of the market. So just a chart supporting, Ryan, your point, nothing more.
Thank you. I wish someone always followed me around and provided chart that explained my thoughts.
Yeah.
That's very
visualizing your thought. So
well, that's AI in that somewhere.
It's a good sign, isn't it? It's a good sign right there that 1-year-old apps are also slightly starting to punch above where they were last year or the years before. That's a really good sign for the industry overall, and super happy to see that.
Yeah, we've seen record titles, not only Monopoly Go, but I forgot the wintry theme. Anyways, we've seen a few different Whiteout Survival, exactly. Yeah. So we've seen few games kind of reach record revenues in record amount of time, which kind of speaks of this value optimization renaissance as a nice way to put it. But another trend that I wanted to talk about is hybridization, if you will. So basically using two revenue models simultaneously. So both in-app purchases that have been, the bread and butter of the free-to-play games, but also what we've seen as of late is, especially with publishers like Kwalee, moving from hybrid casual to deeper games with longer retention, with clear updates, but also all of these leading to adopting in-app purchases in games that were previously meant for only in-app ad revenue model, or built around in-app ad revenue model. So maybe starting with Manish, like hybrid casuals, is we talked about it. I remember in 2019 that was kind of on everybody's lips, and 2020 was supposed to be the year of hybrid casual, but it seems like 2023, 2024 is the actual year when hybrid casuals are booming.
Yeah, no, 100%. So if I picked one theme up at GDC back in March, that was universal in everyone's mind, it was this. They really did feel like 24 and going into 25, actually, we would see this trend even strengthen further. So in my view, we're going to see more of these transitions. I'm not sure if we will see more of the IAPs start to shift a little towards IAA monetization, or more of the IAAs introducing IAP. My intuition here is that it will be more the IAPs introducing IAA, because that allows for revenue to be captured sooner, monetization to start sooner, and perhaps what I also expect is that gameplay design will slightly change to accommodate for the fact that purchases might come later. And it's okay to start monetizing through ads early, let people get introduced to the gameplay, and then commit to, purchases that might happen on day 14 or after day 7 at least. So my sense is it's going to be more the IAP folks bringing in ads monetization. Also, I think ads monetization is quite well established as an ecosystem, right? It's all there. All you have to do is create the moments inside your game that allow for that impression opportunity, allow for that ad opportunity. So that's my expectation at least. But the fact that this trend is there, it's happening now, and it's only going to get faster, is 100% true.
Yeah. No, I definitely see it is this almost like paradoxical simultaneous thing happening where you do have both of what you're describing, Manish, happening, like IAP publishers implementing ads more openly, people have got more comfortable with ads, and just ad in like network elements within our industry have become more prominent, and it's just easier for people to accept and bring into their games. And I think designers are getting more comfortable with how they should implement them into their games. So that is very apparent. But then, yeah, like we I guess Kwalee is a very good example of, and there's lots of good examples out there of companies that made their name off IAA and having ad-driven games, but as Mishka described, having to improve what they can do with IAP and basically have further contribution. And the truth is, it's not just about, like, there's an obvious element of, hey, like, we can make a bit of extra money. There is that, but the truth is, there's other reasons to be implementing IAP into your game, and it comes down to things like, targeting. IAP is a very strong tool in the arsenal, and of course, if you're just running with IAA, there's certain campaign types and things you can do and run, but when you're exposed to IAP and you have these type of users in your game, there's a lot more you can do from an optimization standpoint, a targeting standpoint. And then I think another benefit that honestly people don't talk about enough, I think sometimes, is essentially the almost like CPM benefit on your ad revenue to have IAP users within your ecosystem. I think having those extra valuable players that people really want to reach and actually like run their advertising towards gives you a bit of a bump. And like I would say from experience, gives you a good bump on the IAA side as well. So, there's a lot of good reasons to be implementing IAP, and there's lots of good people making it work at the moment but the tough part is that you can't just, and I think a lot of us had learned this, you can't just take a hyper-casual game, shove in some gems and some IAPs and slap it on the side and say that's great, it's all good. Like, it's taking a very different gameplay and design approach, having to like really rethink the meta around a lot of the games that revolve around IAA. So there's quite a lot to it, even though it sort of on the surface sounds like it's like the simpler approach compared to the IAP to IAA. It's definitely still quite a long-winded process that requires different expertise, different people, different way to look at your game. So yeah, both of these are really interesting to me, and it's fascinating how they are sort of, coming to the same direction from completely different like parts of the industry, which is cool.
Step into the future of game monetization with Xsolla. Xsolla empowers developers and publishers to market, sell, connect, and optimize their games globally. From payment solution to a full suite of tools designed to grow your game's revenue while fostering a loyal player base. Xsolla is your game's gateway to worldwide success. With Xsolla, the world is your playground. Visit xsolla.com today and find all the solutions that will help you to power your games into success everywhere. Yeah, that actually super interesting point you made. So when you have a game that has both in-app purchases and in-app ads as revenue drivers, that means that you're getting more in-app ad revenue because you are able to essentially sell the players that are doing in-app purchases. And because you're making more revenue, you can bid higher, get better players that will further increase your revenue because you will bring on more payers, but you will bring on also more people who are watching ads. So it's like a positive cycle when you have both payers and watchers of ads. Would that be the way to describe it?
Yep, I would agree with that fully. And like, I've seen a lot of evidence to suggest that is the case, and it makes sense logically, makes sense in the data too, for sure.
Yeah, the interesting question I think this raises for me is, as you think about acquisition for a hybrid game, are you effectively looking for a unicorn type of user? Or are you looking for just unique sets of payers and watchers, as you described it, Mishka? I think that's a good way to think about it. And I think there will be an element of looking for this completely new, unique type of user. And I come at it this from an ad network perspective, right? My job here is to find those unique users that will enjoy the pace at which the game is going. They will not be bothered by the fact that it is interrupted by ads, or there are ads that are being displayed, and that there are purchase opportunities to move into the game fast with more commitment, etc. And there is also going to be this element of using existing acquisition products to just give you a basket of players and a basket of watchers who we already know about, right? Because we've acquired these users before. So that's going to be the interesting thing for us to evolve, right? I'm thinking about this problem a lot these days, and I would love to obviously come back at some point with more evidence and more data of which is working. My sense in talking to advertisers that I have met, they are definitely expecting to find more users. Like they have their set A, which is the IA users. They have their set B, which is the IP users. They are looking for a set C, which is a unique hybrid of these two, which from their perspective is about audience expansion. It's about growing their user base. But from a ads product perspective, we've got to think about, well, what are the characteristics of these users and how do we do the best job of finding them for these advertisers who are looking to acquire them? That's going to be a fascinating thing for us to work on over the next few months.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do, to be fair, I would say Meta has good systems, campaign types that do allow you to segment users in a sensible way. Like, despite, I would say part of the reason that this change has occurred, that hybrid has become more viable, and you do have these very different types of users within one core product or game. I think part of the reason for that, at least in the world of gaming, is I think that segmentation has become like a much more prevalent, much more powerful tool that means that you can pull, you can run these distinct campaign types that are pulling in very different types of users and give them, relatively, whether it's with custom product pages on the store page and then how you set up and organize your game, you can provide these very different experiences. This is nothing hugely new in terms of people were innovating on this a good few years ago, but I think it's become like the de facto now is that you need to be providing slightly different experiences to your, ad focused players versus your IP focused players. And I do think as well that like Meta allows for that very, very easily to kind of, provide that different flow for each of these types of users through the different campaign types that we have at the moment. Definitely like one that I would say that, and I'm very biased on this front, but having more ad revenue oriented optimization tools in Meta would be big request.
Well, it's funny you say that, but we are currently we're testing it actually at the moment. So watch the space. There will definitely be more announcements about ad optimized or ad revenue optimized ads products from Meta in the near future.
Cool. Music to my ears.
Yeah, no, Ryan. So actually, before we move on, Ryan, I wanted to ask you, since you're working with hybrid casual games, like I think one thing that is not consistent is how different companies define a hybrid casual game. So if you may, let me try to define a hybrid casual game based on how it's written in the joint report by Meta and Deconstructor Fund that came out, and the link is in the description. But let me see if this works. So there's kind of like, the way I see it is there's 4 pillars that make a hybrid casual game. Pillar number 1 is the design. So as Manish mentioned, it's a lot of the hybrid casual developers are coming in from the hyper casual side. So what we're seeing is a hyper casual core and more of a stats-based progression or some sort of a power progression that allows you to do live operation, and through that increase the retention of these titles. The second pillar is monetization. So now that you have a retention, now that you have a little bit of long-term retention, now that you have updates coming in, you also introduce in power progression. Most importantly, you start introducing in-app ads for core gameplay and in-app purchases for that power progression, and that kind of combines these 2 monetization models. The third pillar is, of course, marketing. You're trying to acquire users at a hyper casual price point due to the very attractive and easy, accessible core gameplay. But at the same time, your return ad spend, ROAS, is at a casual games level. At least that's the target. Maybe not quite as high, but closer to that. And the fourth element is the production. So hyper casual games. I remember when we did our first podcast back in 2019, we were talking about Plank, the hit from Kwalee, and some other hyper casual developers were there telling me how quickly you made those games. We're talking about a week to basically test, and maybe another week if the test results were really good for you to basically launch the game and make millions. But with the current hybrid casual production, there still are sort of a low production values. The development is still very, very fast. You do a lot of those early testing elements, but nevertheless, there's more of a production phase when you're adding all these live operation elements, so that you can actually continue running it at live services. So doing these four pillars, design, marketing, monetization, and production, how does that sound to you, Ryan?
Sounds good. Honestly, it's relieving, for one thing, to actually make sure that my what I perceive as hybrid casual actually lines up with you guys as well, because it's true that this varies a heck of a lot across the industry at the moment, and the view is not always exactly the same. But I'd agree as well that it basically incorporates multiple elements. Like, I think it's too easy to associate it just with that monetization element. People sometimes think of it only in that vein, but you're right that it incorporates all these different elements. Like one thing I would say, and like maybe something I would just add to what you described, is that I definitely agree, and it's true that hyper casual marketing methodology is kind of like the routing of launching one of these games or pushing one of these type of games. But I think that, interestingly, maybe something that really makes it different from old hyper casual marketing is that you kind of very quickly need to expand from where you start. You know, like hyper casual was a lot of big push, initial grunt, like running core basic campaign types as big scale as possible with small margins. Now I think, you know, you can kind of start in that territory, but you really want to be very quickly shifting towards more evolved campaign types, looking at much longer payback periods. So the actual, you know, marketing methodology has to evolve over time. And, you know, when I look now at the type of campaigns we're using on our hybrid games compared to, you know, back in the day with the pure hyper casual stuff, there's a lot more diversity, both in terms of channels that we use, but also the campaign types that we use within those channels. So I think that's like another expectation within the world of hybrid, is that the marketing methodology is evolving a lot quicker than we did in the day when it's just IAA. So I think that's important too.
Great addition. Yes. So perhaps kind of like moving forward, it would be really interesting to talk about concrete success cases or case studies of what's happening in the market, especially on, doesn't have to be on hybrid casual, but it would be really great to hear like who's doing well and why, these sort of positive stories, because a lot of the time the news as of late especially have not always been so positive. So Manish, perhaps you can share some of your clients who are you know, succeeding in the current market.
Yeah, so I think I'll go back to the initial viewpoints around shifting towards more value focus. We've published some great case studies around this, and we had one in particular where the advertiser moved from using a non-value based optimization to a value-based optimization. So they started using the value optimization product, and they saw like a 25% improvement in their ROAS overall.
Oh, wow.
And that's not to be scoffed at as I said, in a mature market, which is competitive and is causing, you know, the costs to go up. And I think to see that you can get more ROAS by, of course, fine-tuning your campaigns, but also picking the right optimization model or picking the right optimization objective. So we're quite excited about that, and gives us going back to your point about the value optimization renaissance, right? There are folks that are still discovering. Now, in general, we tend to see that gaming apps are already quite aware and they're mature and they're thinking about these things. And so there's a high concentration of gaming apps that are already using value optimization, but there's still headroom there. And I'd like to sort of encourage others who haven't yet thought about it, who are probably operating on the basis of, just events-based optimization or upper funnel optimization, to really start thinking hard about how they can get more value out of lower funnel, even though initially the costs may seem high and that might be the fear initially that, oh, this is going to cost a lot. And we would like to see, our campaign generating volume. Ultimately, if you have the right BI and the right analysis set up to look at long-term value as well, you can very quickly see that the ROAS, long-term ROAS from these value optimization campaigns is higher, as you saw in this first case that I've just shared.
Is it, by the way, a thought or a question? So we've seen apps really do well as of last few years and outpace games significantly in terms of growth and taking much more larger share of the traditional 30% of the overall market to closing in on 50% of overall market in terms of revenue. Is the rise of apps, as many of them are subscription-based, is that driven by value optimization to some extent?
So subscription is a very interesting use case in my view, because you have to actually sell the virtues of your app in multiple ways. So Ryan mentioned custom product pages and custom store listings, but folks have also been taking advantage of just web as a way of selling the virtues of their app and potentially using paywalls to sell subscriptions and then delivering obviously the content and the actual value of the app once the app has been downloaded. So I think we're seeing a lot of that happening in APAC, but also in parts of Europe where subscription apps have successfully found the audiences through Meta, as well as the ability to sell the virtues of their subscription using different methods outside of the traditional app install path. And that's how they've sort of suddenly found the volume and the success. And therefore we're seeing this. Now, there could be tailwinds from, for example, health apps, or fitness apps may have had a tailwind sort of post-COVID, etc. But I think this is a real trend. This isn't just some sort of, temporary trend because people have suddenly paid attention to these apps. I think they genuinely have found a technique that works for them to grow their user base and sell these subscriptions in a way that is really meaningful.
It makes sense conceptually, doesn't it? Like that we're all moving towards this methodology that is less abstract and much more direct to the thing that we are actually looking at on our dashboards. Like using ROAS as an example, like going back to that as the example, that is what many mobile marketers have as the final column on their dashboards. So to be using that as the ultimate point of optimization certainly makes a lot of sense. But it is also conversely putting a lot of faith in the platforms that we're working with and the partners that we're working with, which is another sort of interesting dynamic to this, which is the role of a UA manager and how that fits. Like what work should they be doing? Like how many levers do they need? How much control do they have? And that's again, like, I keep doing this now. I don't mean to, but like it's a part of Meta that I think is good and important in that there are still lots of levers that can be pulled, that things that can be tried and tested. And like I would encourage that to remain the case. Like I see some really interesting, I think potentially very valuable tools being released by Meta that are kind of increasing the level of automation, I guess you'd call it, right? And I think there's like some aspects of the business where that's really, really helpful, really important. There's some aspects of the gaming industry where people want more control. And I think that as long as we kind of have this environment where you have this choice between these two ideas and methodologies, which are quite, different in terms of like what teams can handle them and what they want to do with them. Like, I think as long as you have this choice, it's really powerful, because I would say generally in the gaming industry at the moment, a lot of publishers are losing that power to have a bit more influence and direct control over their campaign activity. So I do appreciate that Meta doesn't seem to be going fully in the automated direction. So I went on a little tangent on that one. Yeah, I guess
we might come back to automation in a bit, but it's a good point. We should definitely riff on that.
You've heard of Heroic Labs by now, and we keep talking about them because you need every edge to be successful in today's market. Heroic Labs game stack is built like a brick house. You got the Nakama, their backend game server, Hero, their game development framework, Satori, their live ops service, and last but not least, Heroic Cloud to provide massive scalability. Heroic Labs is a battle-tested partner, and their tech enables you to be flexible, creative, and scale for success. Focus on your game, avoid tech risks, grow your product with scalable live ops, and save a big chunk of cheese, all with Heroic Labs. Yeah, well, before we jump in on automation and all the tool sets that the developers and publishers can use these days, maybe Ryan, you can share some of the case examples or case studies or success stories that you've kind of experienced as of late.
I mean, honestly, well, I'll do two things because I think there's one is I'll blow the Kwalee horn first and definitely say that what's been really fascinating for us is the learning and really pushing and understanding the type of campaigns that work when you're implementing IAP. I mentioned earlier how it requires a bigger, more diverse campaign set, and I think we've seen a lot of success with both value and event optimization, and I guess event optimization often leaning around retention events and things in that realm. I'd say in the world of meta, that's been like a strong point and definitely something that we've been able to, we've really been able to ramp up our activity on meta, partially because of those IAP implementations and basically become, I would say, like more social focused with some of the kind of games that are implementing IAP. But like trying to not make it all Kwalee focused, like I'll definitely give a shout out to like maybe some frenemies, right? Like I think Say Games are a team that's on a lot of people's voice at the moment, and I think it's totally deserved and fair enough. This is like a company that I remember back when we were doing pure hyper casual and our LTVs were like 50 cents. I was hearing about these guys getting like $1.50 LTVs on their hyper casual games. And I think at the time I didn't really realize that they were already hybrid casual, basically. I think they've had a head start on a lot of the industry, and it's the reason that they are kind of ahead of the curve at the moment and doing really well on that more IAA focused, but like heavily supported by IAP game methodology. So I think they're a great reference point, and I think I can see very much that they spend very happily and healthily on social channels like Meta. So I think they're like a good looking at what they're running and working with from a creative standpoint and how their games function is a good reference point at the moment. I hope I don't get assassinated in the company in alpha. Saying that it should be fine.
If we don't hear of you anymore, we know you're working at Say Games.
You know what? I'm just reflecting on that. I think it's fascinating. The more I engage with the gaming industry and the advertisers, it's just this weird family of people that all know each other. They're all competing with each other, but they're also all friends with each other. It's just the most fascinating thing to see, and I don't think I've seen it in any other industry, frankly. It's not seen as a zero-sum game, right, with a fixed pie and everyone gets a slight share. If someone gets a bigger one, someone has to take a smaller one. It genuinely is one of those things where everyone can grow and everyone can learn, but I understand everyone wants to sort of guard their secrets because, why not? But I love to see that dynamic within the industry.
Yeah. There's too much exposed data to be like super secretive in our industry. I think that's part of the problem. So you kind of have to start talking about it, but agreed. It's a great part of what we got.
And part of it is, of course, the events, because with the smaller, more targeted events, like with people like Ryan, who spent $200 million in lifetime on ads, you get invited to all kinds of fun events where are other people who have spent a lot of money on their advertising networks, and then you tend to meet these same people at multiple different events throughout the years, and that kind of creates that camaraderie because you get to know your opposition in a very positive settings. around
Indeed.
the world in the boondoggles. So,
Indeed.
so
On a more serious note, Ryan, you said something that is really fascinating, and I have seen this happen as well. Not able to share quite specifics right now, but at some stage, hopefully, these will become case studies we want to publish. But we are seeing folks doing exactly what you suggested, combining different types of optimizations, using value optimization to optimize the purchase from their acquisition, but also using a custom event that is a good proxy for long-term retention or good proxy for long-term value. And combining these types of campaigns is giving them better overall outcomes over the long term, which I think is a really new and interesting thing that we'll continue to explore with other advertisers as well. And as I said, at some stage, we can make the numbers and the techniques actually much more available once we're more confident that we are seeing this as a pattern. But I am seeing a lot of that sort of combo events approach as well, and that's working for advertisers.
Nice. Yeah, anecdotally, that's again obviously you see the true data-based version of that, but anecdotally from my event drinking, that's also what I've heard and see on the market is this combination of those two factors is like super important for getting Meta to be like as effective as possible.
Yeah, it's an area that we're very interested in. Naturally, like as the industry, as I said, as the gameplay changes, as purchase events move further out, as the focus shifts towards long-term value, one of the things we want to do is make sure that our value product portfolio is serving all types of games, right? Those that are completely satisfied with sort of 7-day optimization products because they are a perfect way to capture the value that you want to develop over the long term, and others that perhaps have lower correlation within 7 days, but a higher correlation within, say, 14 or 28 days. So longer optimization windows are just a super fascinating area for us. Now, I think we have the technical capabilities and the capacity to go and build an amazing product here. So again, watch the space. We certainly will be doing more over here in the near future.
Yeah, interesting. Well, don't you think it's that sort of longer optimization cycles are definitely becoming a more common product need or product development element at the moment? But I do think that goes back a little bit to what we described earlier about struggling or having difficulty launching new games. I suppose very long opti cycle campaigns does certainly lean towards products that have been alive for longer, have definitely more established data sets. So I guess that maybe that feeds into that kind of problem as well. But certainly if I was you guys, I would follow the money on that front. So makes sense.
Well, talking about following the money, I wanted to touch a point of creative trends. So this is something that is, that's the most visible part of user acquisition. And I'm very curious, has there been any shifts with the creative trends, especially this AI era? It feels like AI is the like the biggest help of AI can be seen on the user acquisition side, whether it is better targeting, a better understanding of attribution, or better creative strategy. So perhaps starting with Ryan, like, are you guys actively using AI in user acquisition?
So I would say very directly and actively we use it within the creative realm. So that's the easier jumping off point. And like we use a lot of tools, Runway, Suno, Midjourney, things like this to play around with, experiment. And I'd say we haven't gone as far as I've heard some other people of having, specific AI artists, although I literally was having that conversation this morning, I promise, about maybe bringing that into the company and having a couple people that are devoted full time to being AI artists, I guess the adventurous artists who were trying to get ahead of the curve, maybe of the job market. But yeah, so that's been the most active place. But I sort of also very cognizant that from discussions I've had with like people at Meta, ad networks and things, that AI has become a more consistent part of the algorithms that are supporting the actual networks themselves. So, I think that's not something I'm actively working on myself, but I can see that's having, and probably has for a while, had a positive impact on running our campaigns, right, Manish?
Absolutely. Well, this is why I said we'll come back to automation later. We say automation, but ultimately what it is under the surface is AI. It's a series of models that are making predictions and that are trying to do a few things. Number one, expand the amount of liquidity available to these systems to kind of develop the best or deliver the best outcomes, right? Ultimately, Ryan hit the nail on the head when he said you want a combination of being able to provide a significant direction to targeting, to campaigns, to audience selection, but also getting all the advantages of the machine's learning and the speed with which it can do things. So our philosophy around automating ads products is exactly that. How do we give our advertisers all of the power that AI can give on the targeting side, on the, on audience sort of discovery, audience expansion, matching and targeting the right creative to the right audience, etc., without being constrained in a way that limits performance. So our goal here is to use liquidity to drive performance, but also give the right level of controls to the advertiser that don't become constraints, but become hints into the system. So I feel like the direction of travel for us is combining the power of an advertiser's, a UA team's deep understanding of their own app, of their own game, of their audiences, but then powering that with what the machines can discover and do very, very quickly. Going back to your point, a strength has to be, like Meta has to continue kind of extracting value out of the strength of small budgets, but high value learning very quickly, to help the smaller apps kind of find their footing, to find the right sort of fit. And so I think this is a very fascinating space for us, big investments going on over here, but naturally creative, using Gen AI for creative, just to simplify the process for advertisers, to personalize more for users. That is perhaps the first thing that we would like to unlock over time, kind of make it more and more advanced as we go. But there's a few things we're already spotting, right, in terms of trends, not necessarily from Gen AI, but just from talking to advertisers around creatives, which I think are quite fascinating. Just the need to bring in more like real live action into your ad creatives, commentary from influencers or players, drama, in real life challenges. These are all things that we've done a lot of discovery and joint testing work with our advertisers on. And these are recommendations that our creative shop team has shared, which I think have generated a lot of value. Of course, we've talked about diversifying and personalizing creatives, but one thing that we've tried to use automation for is taking a small set of short clips, but combining them like Lego pieces to make a wide set of creatives that can be then used through these automated systems and automated tools to target the right users with the right creative. Of course, the classic sort of powerful hooks, first 3 seconds, first 5 seconds, using real gameplay within the early part of an ad creative, simplifying and making sure your messages are really, really focused. So some really good stuff that is happening, because of course, creative still remains a very important lever to capture audiences. And I think we are heading into this fantastic new time where machine learning and Gen AI is going to make that significantly easier to do and scale. So I have to be honest, I'm quite excited about this space, and there are pretty large teams that are taking advantage of this fundamental research to make this a reality, so that the advertisers don't have to go build this from the ground up again and again and again. Like, we are in a great position to provide these tools and capabilities to everybody to use.
Some days I find myself like scrolling through different ads thinking, it doesn't seem like many people are using the AI tools, but then I stop and think, maybe they are, and I just don't know. Like, maybe they're actually good. Like that. The days of really recognizing when something is clearly made with AI are kind of going away, right? It's becoming a lot much better, much more subtle. So probably maybe they're more prevalent than I realize. I don't know.
Oh, I'll give an example on that. There's a company called Pooled AI, and they do UGC ads. So essentially, they have a library of real people of hundreds of people, and you as an advertiser can create your UGC ads using real people, and then they speak whatever language, whatever they say whatever you want, and you can create quickly ads and kind of like localize them on different markets simultaneously, modify them on the fly, so do a lot of reps, a lot of rounds. So it's crazy, and that's what you mean. Like, you're looking at an ad, and it's a a UGC ad, it's a person talking about the product or the service or the game, and that's all AI. So it's bonkers.
That's mad. We're gonna have to change UGC, aren't we? Call it something else.
Yeah,
soon.
yeah. Even UGC is actually not UGC.
It's not UGC. I heard something
Yeah.
really fascinating about not necessarily ads or creatives, but about Gen AI. Like Gen AI is the worst it is ever going to be today, right? It's only going to get more powerful. It is only going to get more real. So it is a fascinating space and time. Although you mentioned real people in ads, one of the things we've seen recently, and I'm sure our competitors have done this, for example, but partnership ads are great. Like we're seeing amazing traction where an advertiser joins forces with, an entity, social entity, an influencer, to create interesting content. And it has two very fascinating benefits. One, the ad doesn't feel like it's just another ad, because there is some intrinsic value, that is incremental value in that ad because of the way it's created. But then there's also the benefit of learning from both sets of like advertiser accounts effectively. One's an ad account, one's a non-ad account, but using that learning, using the sort of engagement with this unique creative to power these ads, to target these ads differently. I think there's something really fascinating here that we're going to continue to explore. But the initial traction we've seen from advertisers on these partnership ads is fantastic. And I'm really looking forward to, growing it further. It's something as simple as that. No?
Yeah, that's good to hear, because we've just wrapped up on a partnership on one of our games called Text Express with a company called Planet Play with Joe Jonas. And we're about to start running those. So you've made me hopeful that that will pay off.
Good.
We're talking about like just overall meta solutions and offering that can help companies to thrive in this value optimization environment of today, of a more controlled growth. Like what is something that is coming out from Meta? And Ryan, please critique what is coming out, because I can't critique. I'm not a marketer.
By all means. Well, thanks for the opportunity. I would say the number one, or one of the most important things we need to work on is making sure measurement is as solid as it can be. Ryan mentioned earlier, we've been talking about measurement challenges for a year. I think maybe since 2021, we've all been in this kind of phase of making sense of the new world. And now I feel like we're in a much better place. So one of the solution spaces that we're working on is making sure advertisers have clarity of measurement that is granular, that is timely. And I'm talking about both iOS and Android. The MMPs have done a great job here as well, right, of continuing to push and expand their offerings. So Meta wants to absolutely be in all of those places where advertisers are seeking clarity on measurement. And I think iOS particularly has some significant improvements to be made. I'm not talking about something speculative coming out in a year's time. I'm talking about things that we're about to launch in the next month, which I think are going to be extremely powerful and provide a level of granularity and accuracy which the advertisers will benefit from hugely. And that's quite exciting, because if you have good visibility into your early performance of campaigns, if you're able to identify your cohorts of users, look at their D7 performance, look at their D30 performance, and so on and so forth, it gives you significantly more confidence in your budget spending. And particularly, I think, where the advertisers were used to something quite simple and straightforward. There's last touch attribution. There's, an MMP is going to do that cross-pub attribution for you, and you're good to go. Now that has become significantly harder, particularly on iOS, and it might sort of become complicated on Android as well in the near future. So being very solid on the ground with measurement products that are accurate, granular, and help the advertisers make more informed decisions, that is absolutely something that we're going to continue investing in. As I said, there's something coming out within the next month. So that's the space number one, and I'd love to hear Ryan's reaction to that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's probably the main. I mean, we sort of somehow managed to get through almost this whole thing without really talking about scan and iOS and like actually so much of what we've been talking about is probably me thinking about Android basically. Reflection of how much things have shifted over the last couple of years naturally. But that honestly is really important to me. Like I've seen Meta talking quite a bit in the last couple of months about closer embedded integrations with analytics platforms. And I think a lot of the verbiage that came out at the time was quite broad, and therefore it was more related to things like Google Analytics and stuff like this. Is a little bit more web oriented. But I think hearing things about Meta moving a little, not away, but like not focusing so much on the kind of more self-attributed, I guess within mobile, we kind of say like self-attributed network, right? And I think the days of that are having to kind of go away as the attribution and measurements become so much harder. And I think, for us, connection with MMPs, as you alluded to, is like, and deeper connections with MMPs that allows for better pass back of information. I think that's really important, because the truth is as well, like, so many of your competitors are taking advantage of some of that more, like, let's say, holistic data across lots of different platforms. And what, the amount of data that mobile companies are willing to part with these days is sometimes a little alarming, and I think surprises some people in the industry. But there's definitely people that are like really taking advantage of that. And so I think, like, honestly, if it was like Meta at that point now where, that's starting to happen, and I think, the kind of things you're talking about to me sound down the right path.
Yeah. I mean, as someone, I think we alluded before, the privacy bar is still high, and, we will make no compromises there, but we are excited about solutions that allow us to achieve the outcome of better ROAS level measurement, ROAS measurement in a way that, again, gives you more confidence gives you more clarity and gives you more confidence in your budget decisions. That is ultimately the vision statement for that particular team. Like, how do we keep making it easier for advertisers so they're not operating in sort of a fog of, cloudiness or shadows around certain types of campaigns, and what the real performance might be versus what's visible. And that's kind of where we will keep chipping away at this problem. But again, as I said, privacy bar still remains very high, which is perhaps why it takes us a little bit longer to get to the right solution, because we want to make sure it's defensible, and we want to make sure that it is very much robust and, something that we can stand behind.
Yeah, I have faith. I mean, like, aggregated event management or aggregated event was like a good step in the right direction from my perspective. So if we can keep going down that kind of path, seems good to me.
Yeah, and on the market level, I mean, that's correct me if I'm wrong, but when we hit this privacy changes, that created a lot of uncertainty in the market due to uncertainty of the attribution. And when you have uncertainty, you will decrease your budgets, your marketing budgets. When you decrease your marketing budgets, you're looking at higher paybacks, and that means you're getting less downloads, and that overall leads to market declining pretty rapidly. And then if we can, reverse this trend, it's surprisingly, attribution is probably the most important thing to get mobile back on growth. Am I correct with this sort of assessment?
Absolutely spot on, right? Attribution is key. And in a weird way, digital ads has always been one of those slightly funny beasts, right? Which maybe feels completely normalized to people who've been in it for a long time, but to an outsider who's used to, say, e-commerce, right? Where, hey, a purchase happened, we shipped the product, and the customer got it, we got the money, happy times. The digital ads isn't like that, right? And DR ads isn't like that. There is a lot that happens behind the scenes to make sure measurement is good, attribution is good, and that your spend is going to the channels that deliver the value that you are looking for, right? As measured by you, which goes back to my earlier point. Everyone has a slightly different definition, broadly aligned across, say, different types of games, etc. But, everyone is aiming for something slightly different. So the best thing we can do is give the data and give the tools so advertisers feel informed and they can make great decisions. But 100%, attribution is critical.
Yep. I wouldn't add anything too much to that. Thumbs up.
Well, we've covered a lot of topics, from value optimization to hybrid casual. Check out the link below, to AI, to creative trends, to attribution. So this was a very insightful conversation for people like myself who don't understand much about marketing. And hopefully for those who do understand a lot about marketing, it's even more valuable for them. So I want to thank both of you gentlemen for joining the podcast and sharing all the insight.
Ishka, thanks very much for hosting, for a very lively conversation. And Ryan, thanks as well for your case studies, your insights, and your critiques as well. Again, we're very excited about the direction of travel that we're on, and we'd love to sort of partner with many of the advertisers listening and anyone else. Reach out if there are questions and comments or critiques as well. We welcome that. We're just excited to be working on the right things.
Yep. Cool. No, yeah, been really fun. Publish your game with Kwalee. I think I'm not sure all the things I'm supposed to hit, but that's the important one. But yeah, it's been really fun. I guess maybe I'll speak to you again in 5 years, Michigan.
Yeah, maybe we can shorten it out. But links in the description for both the Hybrid Casual report as well as Ryan Davies and Manish. Your link is as well. So connect with the folks. Check out the report, and thank you everybody for listening. On that note, bye.
You did it. You made it to the end of the episode. As a fan of the show, it would help us out if you subscribe and leave us a review on the podcast service of your choice. More importantly, are you a member of the Deconstructor of Fun Slack group? If you have 5 years or more of games industry experience, go to deconstructoroffun.com/Slack and apply to join. Join the games industry's best professional community filled with peers always willing to lend a hand. Or subscribe to our newsletter to get all the latest insights from the Deconstructor of Fun content creators. Thanks for listening.